New York State Assembly member representing the 85th District in the South and Southeastern Bronx, lifetime Bronx resident. And she brings over 20 years of experience in public policy, diplomacy, and advocacy, grounded in equity, justice. She served as Vice President of Policy Research and Advocacy at the Community Service Society, leading data-driven efforts to expand economic opportunity here in New York, and national efforts to address the cost of living crisis. She's also a diplomat, which we all know very well. And she spent a decade as a U.S. diplomat with the Department of State, and was posted in Brazil, Pakistan, Colombia, Washington, D.C., and at the United Nations up the street at the U.S. mission. And worked on labor rights, climate, peacekeeping, and women's rights. And anything I'm missing?
It's hard to.
She's served on local nonprofit boards and organized for Bronx families during COVID. She's mentored young people, and she earned degrees from New York University and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. And so, welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be appointed by the mayor to serve on this board. Has a lot of meaning for me as someone who was a former diplomat and worked across the street. I feel like I'm on my old stomping grounds. So it's nice. And I think it's really important to steward this land and this work because New York City is a global city. We're the center of the world. And it's important that the UN stay here and thrive here. It's an economic engine for jobs and for people. And for our global influence in the world. So just really, really excited, and welcome to all the new board members. I think we'll do another round of intros, and really excited to learn from all of you. And I'll be doing some one-on-ones to get up to speed, and because I'm drinking from a fire hose, and it's going to be exciting. And thank you to UNDC for all the work that they're doing to get me up to speed. So it's an honor. Thank you. And I will introduce our new board members. Okay, perfect. So I'll do a quick couple of intros for our new board members. So really excited to introduce our commissioner from the Mayor's Office of International Affairs, and new director rather. So the Honorable Ana Maria Chila has been a leader in New York and nationally in the fight for immigrant rights for over 2 decades. Born in Colombia, Ana Maria has spent her entire adult life in New York, and she co-founded and led several grassroots progressive organizations, including Make the Road New York and the Center for Popular Diplomacy. She's been a champion on issues such as immigration reform, sick leave, and raising the minimum wage. And it's wonderful to have you, and congratulations on your appointment. So welcome. Also excited to welcome.
What did Make the Road do? Or what does it do?
Make the Road is an immigrant rights organization with community centers in Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Long Island, and now a network of sister organizations in New Jersey, Connecticut, Nevada, Pennsylvania.
But you don't fix the potholes.
Well, the name comes from a poem by a Spanish poet from the early 20th century, Searcher. We make the road by walking. So the name of the organization is inspired. It comes from that poem.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
That's good.
A lot of people think that the name means it refers to fixing the road, but along the way, we have to make the road together.
It's an honor also to welcome our former commissioner, or actually still transition, outgoing, Miss Aisata Kamara. She's served as the New York City's Commissioner for International Affairs, has been in the agency for quite a long time. You know the ropes here, doing such incredible work. She's led the city's engagement with the diplomatic community, the Consular Corps, and the United Nations under Mayor Adams. Also previously served as the Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Strategic Initiatives and Chief of Staff, advising city leadership on international policy and overseeing diplomatic protocol and operations. She's been a recognized leader on subnational diplomacy, and we're so excited to have you as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm also going to acknowledge representatives of the city who are here. representing the chair of the City Planning Commission and the director of City Planning, Chair Sherman, we have Ali Soon. Thank you. Oh, thank you, sorry. Thank you for being here. She's the East Side team leader in the Manhattan office of the Department of City Planning. So thank you for being here. And we also have the representative of the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. Representative for Commissioner Levy is Michael Sandler. Perfect, hi. He's the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Neighborhood Strategies at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. Thank you so much for being here. And I will move now to the elections. Okay. Perfect. So we'll move now to the election of officers. So as per the bylaws of the corporation, I request the approval of the board to re-elect the officers of the corporation, Robert Cole, Loida Diaz de Jesus, and Kim White. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you. Approved. So now I will have a minute for you.
Let's do the minutes. Yeah.
Okay. I'd also like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of September 18th, 2025, last year.
No move.
Thank you. Thank you. And now I'll turn to Rob for the approval of 2025 measurement report and ratification of committees.
Sure. So, under New York State law, we're required to publish a measurement report every year, basically measuring the progress of the corporation against the mission statement, and gets submitted to New York State. We circulate it in advance to the governance committee. We try to reflect all the goings on here in this measurement report this year. A lot changed in 2025, and so that's been kind of worked into this report for the year. And so we would ask for approval of the measurement report. Unless anyone has comments or thoughts on it. Move to approve. We also, with the new board members, we kind of reconstituted some of the committees, and the list is provided in the book in tab 4. This is let's begin on the committees. Other board members too, if you're interested, please reach out. We could certainly add to these committees in the future, I think. But this is kind of where things stand now. So we would ask for board ratification of the members of these committees. So we need a
Motion to approve?
Yeah. So moved. Thanks, Jay. Myself. On to agenda 5.
That's the finance.
Yeah. Finance committee met on March 18th with our investment advisor, PFM. Dr. Wilhelm and Ali Dempster are on the video here to comment on our investment strategy. Joe Ritigliano is now chairing that committee. Very pleased to have him. He is very interested in the bond financing and investment strategy. You can see the agenda on that meeting is provided in attachment 5. The minutes. PFM gave the investment report. UNDC has an investment report that basically lists our current investments. Joe, any comments?
No, right now we sit on a very laddered portfolio. We took in the bond premium, those are 365.
Yeah.
We issued bonds plus the cash that we had on hand committed to the project. It's invested by PFM and it's very conservative. Every year we go back and forth and we do anything outside of US Treasuries, and we say yes and we never do it because we should. The money is needed. It's earmarked for construction. Get the project finished. We issued in the most tumultuous time right after the tariff. It's Easter. So the Monday after Easter in April last year, we issued the bonds. It felt like terrible waters. We jumped right in the middle and it turned out to be okay. So the bonds went off without a hitch. And George said that time, when they're willing to buy your bonds, you sell them to them. And stop playing. If they're willing to line up to buy, we were oversubscribed by like 2x, and Goldman did a great job. And now the money is in-house and it's being managed in a laddered portfolio in 8 different funds. When I say funds of repair, replacement, debt service, we have multiple places where we have it, all for the project. And some we're required to keep in perpetuity to keep the coverage on the bonds in the event there is a default or a tenant major leave or a problem, so we have to have coverage, cover the debt service. So very well handled. It's not an exciting portfolio, it's pretty laddered, paint dry. Money gets called by the tenants as they need it, we'll issue it, or bills will get paid. And we have a nice procedure on how that happens, nothing's in a hurry, everything comes in through the checkbook and approval processing, and then gets paid out.
Any questions?
Yeah. I would just say the way it's structured under the indenture for the bonds, there's a bond trustee at Bank of New York, which holds these various sub-accounts. So for example, all the costs for UNDC's build out at One UN Plaza is in a One UN Plaza hard costs fund. So you can't commingle the money, right? You can't combine the 2 UN Plaza money with the One UN Plaza. There's various hard costs accounts, a soft cost account. There's money that we provided for the tenants under the lease, and that's in a separate account that's separately invested. So when that money is needed, UNDC requisitions it from the bond trustee who then pays it out. It's all a very controlled process. The debt service fund, renewal.
We have 10 baskets, the buckets are baskets for every, like.
Yes,
of them.
yes.
Segregated for the project.
And each of those funds is kind of the investment duration is tailored as to when the fund may keep a certain amount in cash. Others, that's kind of where PFM comes in, recommends it. So they work with our team, even on the construction side, to kind of adjust that strategy with the construction schedule. To
Trying to have money not working, so money's working in a time frame that it can be called down, so we have some longer yield treasuries. I don't think we go out beyond 36 months or much beyond that. But some are closer in, so we can turn it into cash quickly, or it turns into cash naturally and goes to fund.
Yeah.
No concerns about tariffs? You mentioned that
No,
earlier.
no, we're pretty, no, we did, so the issuance we did the day after the tariff declaration, so I think all of our gear has been bought.
Done.
Right, we're good, right, we came through that, we missed tariff.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, we missed it. We, believe it or not, early on prudently ordered some of the long weight equipment. Yeah, you guys on the construction side had to call a meeting to get the orders in, believing everything.
It was primarily Canadian then.
Yeah, and then long life, 36-month lead time stuff, we can't be waiting. So, worked out. Got the pillar. She just got put in.
Congratulations.
Your chillers got put in, right, Rob? So
What's that?
the chillers are in, so.
Well, yeah, the chillers in One UN were landed last week and the 2 UN chillers go in on Saturday.
And the possession is 9/10 of the law.
Right, they're ours now. They're.
So I'll just turn it over to Jack and Ally. Maybe you have some thoughts.
Absolutely, team. Great to see you again today. Just a quick reminder again that all of the portfolios are in compliance with their various guidelines, and again that they are very well funded to meet the construction process, as well as our Mr. Rudy Gelato mentioned that they are only invested in a laddered treasury portfolios per the investment strategy for each of the funds. Again, we meet with the team quarterly now that the portfolios have well matured. The process has settled down a little bit as construction has started to progress. So any changes we're in frequent communication with the team. But from our standpoint, all is going well with the bonds, and we are pleased with where they are sitting currently. Happy to take any questions from the floor as well.
All right.
Hey,
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks, Ally.
So the next item is UNDC's annual investment report. Again, this is a state required report, gets submitted every year by the end of March. And there's a resolution for approval. The report is shown in tab 6I, and it includes a list of all the treasury investments.
Yeah, that's the one.
By fund. Yeah. We did send a replacement version of this yesterday.
Are you looking for a motion, Rob, or
we need a motion for that report.
move?
Next item, other state report, prompt payment report. Corporation has guidelines on payments of all of our invoices. 30, payment has to be made in 30 days unless there's a good reason not to. So there's a very brief report in item 6.2. And we complied with those guidelines throughout the year. There was no requirement to make interest payments or anything. So that would also be a motion for that report. They'll move. Okay. And then finally is the annual procurement report for 2025. That's in tab 6.3. It's a list of all of UNDC's open and completed contracts. Goes back a number of years. Thank you to our procurement team putting all this together. It has a name of vendor, procurement description, award process, amounts expended for the fiscal year, life to date, and MWBE status. Now, this much more detailed data actually gets submitted to New York State electronically. This is kind of a synopsis of that report. And there's also a resolution for that report. I will say we are subject to New York State's MWBE and service disabled veterans requirements. Generally, 30% of all contracts have to be MWBE contracts. Split between minority and women-owned businesses. You know, they don't have to be 15%, but there's a split, and it's sort of, we determine that on a contract by contract basis. It's also a 6% SDVOD guide for service disabled veteran businesses. So.
And what's the percent?
6%.
That sounds high to me.
It is. It's not always easy to
It is.
to hit.
It is.
I mean, that I think is more aspirational goal because often there weren't enough businesses. You know, you'd look at the list and so it's yeah. So sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't. It works very well, like on the the current Turner contract. It's $181 million contract with all sorts of subcontracts. So you can assemble a team and hit these numbers very well. In the memo, there's kind
We're getting close.
yeah, I mean, I think we're doing very well. I think we're exceeding 30% actually overall, which is very good.
That's great.
Yeah. That we also need a motion for that report.
And
I would love to get some kind of report from the builders about it. If it's gone too far. I mean, because it sounds so high.
On the 30% or the
This
overall?
6% was kind of the one that,
6% is high.
Yeah, but we're only meeting in at 2.97%. right
Yes,
now.
that's right. So
Yeah,
we're below,
Yeah,
we're
we're
below
well
that.
below.
Yeah.
well, we met it, so.
That's on the Turner Construction company contract where they are meeting the 6% service.
They are,
veterans.
yeah.
They are.
But I saw it is correct in that in 2025 overall, as far as the corporation's procurements, we're at closer to 3% in regards to service disabled veterans. There are certain exemptions and exclusions. Not all expenditures are subject to requirements.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
And on the SVBOD contract, we lucked out with one contractor who was that had high dollar volume that we were able to project. So that helped us a lot. Otherwise, you have to look at the capability of the people who are coming in and whether or not they have the ability to do the work, because this is, we can't slow down. It's a fine line.
Can't slow down and can't endanger,
Pardon me?
and can't endanger anybody.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's, you know, it's always a balance because it's all competitively bid, right? So the vendor has to have a competitive price. They need to hit the insurance limits. The big project, those limits can be high. And the purpose of the program is to kind of help businesses.
And we'll make, we've made monetary decisions to engage people who were not necessarily
Yeah.
the lowest bidder, but pretty close.
Yeah.
So we made those adjustments and it's all within budget.
Have you-
Well done.
Oh. Have you engaged in any or have seen any major challenges in meeting the threshold, or is it just, I mean, how?
So we have 10 components of work, which I'll get into shortly. And it's literally on a project by project by project basis. And, you know, I think we just got notification that we had a plumber. A plumber was an SVBOD, and we got notified this week that he's unable to do the job. So we're taking it over with another plumber who's on the project. So it's that kind of thing. You have to make value judgment. You look in people's eyes and say, can you do the job? On the other hand, we've had some very good successes.
It's hard.
It's a good question. What is the lowest threshold number that we could have in terms of percentages based on our compliance with the state? If they're asking for 6%, how low can we get? And what are the ramifications of us not meeting the standard?
That's a great question. Well, with regard to minority and women-owned business participation, the governor's goal is 30%.
Yeah, we're meeting that 31, yeah.
Right. But with regard to SDBOB participation, that's a separate law. New York State OGS oversees that program and individual agency compliance with it. I don't think there's a sort of single answer to that. I think it's OGS sort of works with agencies and authorities on a case by case basis.
But there are no ramifications if you don't meet it.
There could be, because the participation requirement comes from state law and state regulations. I think one way to think of it is OGS looks for agencies and authorities to make good faith efforts and to mandate that their vendors and subcontractors do the same. So if that's happening, that's sort of taken into consideration.
I have a follow-up question on that. What is that dollar amount for 30%? That is 1 million or 1.5 million?
How much is such bad?
Does 30% represent financially?
Oh, on our dollars?
It's an okay.
Yeah, I think it's,
It's 11 million on page.
so it's about $11.5 million. For just 2025 alone. Yeah.
My question is for discretionary bid, because the New York State government increased from 1 million to 1.5 million. So that's what I'm asking, is applicable for UNDC also?
Oh, on the size of the business, you mean?
Yeah, for discretionary bids.
Yeah, I mean, we do track that. I don't know what, do you know the current?
Yeah, so in regards to that threshold comes from Empire State Development. For MW purchasing, authorities can use up to $1.5 million.
It's now 1.5.
It was increased
Yeah.
last year from half that, from $750,000.
Wow, okay.
So that enables us to make discretionary awards without full competitive bidding to MWP firms.
Right.
When appropriate.
So there's a discretionary bid, which means you don't have to go for a full competitive bid. And it's up to a certain dollar limit. So contracts up to now $1.5 million, you can be awarded without going through a full public bid contract report process.
To be clear, we competitively bid all the construction.
Construction, yes. So that's, I think, is that answer your question? Yes, yeah. A huge amount of compliance reporting goes into this. So, Justin and Priscilla take this on. I mean, you have to track all the dollars in the contract, make sure the subcontractor actually gets the money, and utilization reports. And when you go on a competitive bid, the bids have to come in with a report as to how they're going to meet the requirement. So the program's been very successful. I would say it's probably the highest threshold in the whole United States, actually, is in New York. Okay. Audit committee?
So next is the audit committee
Yep.
report. So the audit committee met last week and we looked over UNDC's 2025 financial statements. We discussed the developments, notably the project and the $365 million bonds issuance for the project. We have Holstein here, who's going to give us a more in-depth presentation from CBIZ, who has been doing our auditing. But everything generally looks good. The audit timeline was a bit delayed, but we are in good standing and no material misstatements on the audit report. So that's good, but I will turn it over to give us a full-on presentation. Thank you.
You should know that your audit committee is very engaging, so. It's not just a rubber stamp on the report. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure welcoming our new chair and working with management this year. I keep saying it's like history happened at UNDC. It's not every day you go out for bonds, redo your leases. So a lot did happen this year. You were implementing a new system as well, a new general ledger package that really drove UNDC through half the year. But they didn't fully implement it, so that caused a bit of delay. At the end of the day, as an expression is said, we still got to the deadline, but we were quite delayed in that process. So we did try to come in earlier. Again, there was just, as we were working through the numbers, this is not normal operating procedures for UNDC to issue bonds, leases such as these. But again, it all went well. We issue not only the financial statement audit, we do a series of other reports, the investment compliance, the scheduled liquidity, reserve fund requirement, and debt service requirement, and an internal control and compliance letter. Everything is clean. And so when we say clean, an unmodified opinion, and in some of those reports we issued, we're not giving opinion, we're just saying they're in compliance with. So I do just want to make that clear. There are some minor open items at this point in order for us to issue. Those are typical normal items of signing of the representation letter, ensuring that post-balance sheet has any transaction. We have to go through post-balance sheet review to make sure any transaction from the time we left the field to the time we're signing off wouldn't affect the financial statements in any way, whether it's the numbers and or disclosure. There's a lot of templated information I went through with the audit committee around how the process went, journal entries, etc. The one major thing, yes, was the delay in the timing. But again, we got to where we needed to be, and that I call the finish line, and that's really now. So today we're going to be approving those, or sort of asking to approve them, I believe. Management was cooperative. We thank them. No fraud, no instances noted through the process. Related parties and conflicts, no matters noted. Again, very templated information. And as I said to the audit committee last week, when there is no behind those answers, that's a good thing. So what is left is the 990. Again, the uniqueness of UNDC that you issue a quote unquote tax information return, not a tax return, but an information return. So that is open. And then for UNDC, really completing priority implementation, because that will take us into a very different place from a reporting perspective, very easily to use, whereas now they're on systems that isn't even supported that by a vendor. So a lot of past history and a lot of cleanup will be occurring, but it will be a lot easier. So I know Rob's going to just highlight some things on the financial statements. Again, a clean opinion. They do look very different from last year, but we know why, which is obviously everything that has been happening. So this is not a typically new. but all good news.
Okay, so I'm gonna just highlight a few items in the financial statements. They're in tab 8A. Again, this was kind of a milestone year for the corporation. So the financial statements look somewhat different. Just starting in the management's discussion and analysis, we have a write-up on kind of the, well, who do we have here?
Who let him in?
Problem. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
You look very relaxed.
I know the real story. First of all, I bought a present for everybody. I want to start off. I want you to see this.
The UN great again.
This was given to me last week by the United States ambassador to the UN. I had a meeting in his office and I walk in and I thought Donald Trump will come out of the door. It doesn't work that way. This is George with Ambassador, his assistant came in, Madam Chairman, and he says, "Would you like this?" I said, "Yeah, it looks good." So that's my gift. Take the UN credit.
I recall when we did our book, we went to the UN, we wanted to use the UN blue.
Yeah.
Yes, their approval.
This is
It
not
was
the
turned
UN.
down. So
This is
hopefully
not-
not.
this is not-
Unless you got it.
No.
But it was,
This is president's blue. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So we're very excited that you could join us today.
glad that you could invite me.
Yes, yes. Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, George. It was so good to catch up with you yesterday. We wanted to honor you and to thank you for your many, many years, 31 years of service as chair and longer, actually. 32 years as chair. Yes, 32 years. Thank you.
55 years.
And 55 years of service, over 5 mayoral administrations. So thank you for all of your incredible work. I will be soaking lots of knowledge from you over time. And we do have a resolution for you that I will read aloud to
And then I can
you.
leave.
No, well, if you like. But I'll just read it aloud. Whereas George Klein retired from the Board of Directors on December 18th, 2025, after 54 years of distinguished service to the United Nations Development Corporation, including 31 years of leadership as chairman. And whereas first appointed to the board in 1971 by Governor Nelson Rockefeller, and subsequently appointed and reappointed as chairman from 1994 to 2025 by mayors Rudy Giuliani, Michael Bloomberg, Bill de Blasio, and Eric Adams. His tenure represents an outstanding legacy of civic commitment to the city and the state of New York. And whereas the corporation, the city and state of New York, and the international community have deeply benefited from his leadership and expertise, which were instrumental in the development of 1, 2, and 3 UN Plaza, the securing of long-term leases that anchored the United Nations and the United Nations Development Program in the city of New York, and many other initiatives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors extends its most sincere gratitude and highest commendation to George Klein for the integrity, wisdom, and energy with which he has served the corporation and the public interest.
Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Did 3 minutes for
Of course.
31 years. First of all, I want to say hello to everyone. We're all friends and longtime friends. And we have shared a lot together. We've created a lot together with integrity, with honesty, with handshakes, and there's something very special in the sense for this corporation. Been around since 1968. The only problem we had once when one of the upper employees had a car too long, a chauffeur and a limousine, but otherwise there never was a question whatsoever. We built on time, we stayed within money, and there was a key as we spoke on the phone. Stay away from the press.
They're here.
Why it's a public session? Public session. I withdraw the statement. So, I looked up chat GPT as we speak to find some, some very interesting comments you can make. And, they give you these fast quips. One of them I saw was, he was so long in the office that his first office plant is now a Sequoia redwood. But there are a lot of them. So go into chat GPT and find. I was born in Vienna in 1938.
Mm.
It was after the Germans marched into Vienna after the Anschluss. And my father and parents were lucky, they escaped, lost family, came to the United States. My father went into a business. This is not for publication, so we're off the record here, even though you're sitting. Started a company called Bartlett's Candy, 50 retail stores in New York City, some in the Bronx, and all over the city. And I was fortunate to have met Nelson Rockefeller. I was involved in some of his political campaigns, and he offered me this position. And I never realized it would be 50 years. And I always felt there was an opportunity to give something back. This country was great to us. We were saved, literally, from murder and slaughter. And this country saved us, like many of you, either you or your parents or your grandparents. That's the greatness of America. So to me, it was a privilege, in the sense to be able to give back, besides museums and hospitals, other charitable things that our family have had the privilege to be with. But we would not have succeeded without the work that all of you have done individually, Rob, and Jeff Feldman, our former presidents and chairman. It doesn't work by yourself. And this was a dedication, and you're all dedicated to the concept of what we're doing here. And what are we doing here? That's to try to help New York City, that the United Nations stays here in New York. And this hat is not a joke. What it means, basically, is that our government, even our present government, understands that there's a great value to the United Nations. There are 193 countries sitting around the table. I remember I had lunch a few weeks ago with the Israeli ambassador. And I asked him, you walk into the UN, first minute you walk in, there are 77 machine guns ready to shoot at you. Right or wrong, that's a fact of life. So I asked him, what are you doing here? And he said to me, look, if you're not at the table, you have nothing to say. You have nothing to say. Not only where you're talking, and that's in the political arena, or whether it's in private life or in your business, you have to be involved. If you're not involved, and that's in everything that you do, in your synagogue, in your church, in your community, in your family, you have to be involved. And if you're not at the table, you have nothing to say, and therefore no complaint. So it's been my privilege for all these years to be able to be at the table, to have a hand in giving back to the city of New York. Unfortunately, the UN has moved a couple of hundred employees to Portugal and to Germany, and the Palais in Geneva is growing all the time, and Paris, and every country wants the United Nations, because not only is it prestigious, but their employees, it's a moneymaker, and they have to come to you. So here they at least come to the United States, at least once a year, when they have the General Assembly. And the world is really in turmoil. Joe, good to see you on the board. And it's good that we have that opportunity, at least here. You can have a protest in front of the UN. You can go and say something. You at least have a chance to be at the table. For all of you, whatever you do here, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, the integrity that you put in all these years during this period. You knew that Rob and Jeff, etc.,
we meant it seriously with honesty and integrity. Our handshakes were handshakes, and you knew that we would live up to the word that we did. And so I was fortunate. The 5 mayors were easy. They didn't realize what they were doing, keep appointing someone to the same job. So I figured at the end of my lifespan, not totally, but after all these years came December, time was to go before somebody else said, you know, he's there a long time. I'll go on my terms. And my terms are basically the achievements. We've raised close to $1.8 billion over the term of this entity. We've given to the city of New York, Rob, around $375 million from this small corporation. And we built something, 2 buildings with a world-class architect, Kevin Roche, like we have here on 42nd Street and the Temple of Denver and the Met, and lots of buildings in New York. And all of you have put a hand in it, from council to accounting firms to the city employees, and all of you. So there are 2 new members on the board, most recent, Carolyn and Joe, who they knew why they wanted to be appointed to this board, because there's something of value here. And I thank you, really thank you. I'm not running away. As Douglas MacArthur said, old soldiers never die, just fade away. And I intend, please God, to give me health with my family, and with Joel helping with all and Jan and everybody around the table, Joe, etc. And stay with it. You have a very good chairman. I had an opportunity to speak with her on. We spent 40 minutes yesterday, and I'm available whenever I can lend to history, wisdom you have. And there is an opportunity here. So thank you. I don't like wars. I don't like plaques. I've avoided many, many, many of them in my lifetime. I have no name on any building. And even though we've been charitable and involved in many areas, my good friend Carolyn has been my congresswoman many, many years, and the UN and Greenpoint. So thank you. And I hope the media plays it down, but play up the chairman. Because there's, sometimes chairmans come and chairmans go. Randy was a good man, but times change, okay? And we have a new chairman, and your background and your history and the respect that you have among the council and the politicians in New York, the political, and you worked for the State Department, you worked for the UN, so you know what these diplomatic chores are. I marvel when I turn on the UN and I say, and they talk so politely to each other. and the daggers are flying. And you wonder, as a human being, you sit there and you listen to all this, that lawyer and all the work that she's put into this. But do you need it? You need it. Even the serpent had to speak with Eve, and God had to spoke to all of them. So language is important, and being involved is critical. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But if you want, I can sit and vote on something.
Sure.
I'm gonna go. I believe you.
So much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. How you doing? When we built these buildings, somebody asked me, why were we able to build them, Joel? You know this story, within budget and on time. Because we had a secret. And the secret was Turner Construction was the contractor on these buildings. And they weren't easy because we were dealing with the UN. How do you keep something in budget? The UN, for example, the campus, and you're not familiar with it, was basically they rebuilt it 100% cost overrun. because the United Nations bureaucracy is literally impossible. If you make a mistake or you do something wrong, they don't throw you out, they move you up. And the only way to accomplish what we're able to do is I asked Carl Moss, Erwin Miller, Sheldon Solo, who were heads of other major construction corporations. I said, join the board. Do me a favor. Ask the good questions. And so when Turner Construction came in, and many of you know Carl Moss and Erwin Miller, and Joel is a student of Erwin Miller and Carl Moss. I'm sorry for Turner Construction. Because they asked the right questions. And that's the key to public service and government service questions. So we fortunate, I regret that we didn't build the building on the park, which we started in 2011. It was a great idea to build the building. It had to be 100 feet below the top of the Secretary building and move the whole UN into it, redo the UN. They would have saved $1.5 billion by it. Build it, close down everything, close these buildings down. Just they couldn't approve it. Why? Because there were 193 countries. And the UN, as you know, needs 193 votes in order to pass any budget. So you can imagine the trading that goes on. And so there comes a moment they just can't get to it. So God should give them wisdom, because the world hangs literally on a thread. And we see it every day. So thank you again. I don't mean to pontificate, I don't mean to politicize, but stay close to your friends, stay close to your family. And whatever you do, do it with integrity and with purpose and meaning. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, George.
I'll leave you with that.
Thank you for
In the band, Daddy, who's gonna hold your hat?
Good luck to you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, George. Thanks so much.
I'm not going away, so
No, we won't let you.
We know where to find you.
I'm coming down to Florida soon.
Hurry up. Hurry up.
Calling you.
How you doing?
I'm doing
Kept my word.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Legacy.
Anytime.
I've not met them, he's the dedicated to speak, but I'm the new commissioner of international.
Ah, I see. Love to. Good position. Use it well.
I will do my best.
Yeah.
I will take care of it.
You win this.
Yeah.
What you think, Jude?
Thank you.
But we don't correct George. George.
No.
My wife was born there.
Emotional.
Yeah.
Also another golf.
Rob, you're inheriting that. Somewhere.
That may be, that I may get.
Yeah, yeah.
We're just a real estate. company.
I'm done.
Okay, we now, we made many of the things down there.
I think we're on the finance part.
Yeah.
Touch money, right?
Yes. We
I was just
were.
giving a few highlights of the.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Should I move or to accept our other committee?
They're May.
Mary.
Oh, we're gonna go through.
I'm just gonna comment a little bit on the
Okay.
financial
Some
statement.
top line points. All right. I know that's hard to follow,
It's a dramatic.
but, we're gonna go through the finance. Hi, everybody. We're gonna go through the financial statements really quickly and then wrap this up. It's hard to follow George Pine.
I know,
But we honor
I know.
him and he won't be going too far. He'll be around.
Yeah, so let me just briefly comment, the financial statements, you know, the MD&A section, there's a discussion on key events in 2025. Talks about the new leases with everybody. And the bond issuance, the $65 million on page 5. And then when you look at page 6, you see the summary statement of net position, which if you look at the 2025 column versus 2024 and you say total assets went from 205 million to $814 million, right, in a year. Highly unusual because you look at 2023 and it was 206 million, right? And a lot of this reflects the issuance of the bonds. So you have $365 million added to restricted assets. For example, property and equipment, as we did work in the building, gets added to the value of the buildings essentially. So you saw that go from roughly double from almost 50 million to 104 million. And then other non-current assets goes from 8.5 million to 253 million. So that's kind of an accounting item. You have to recognize lease receivables as an asset. Characterizing that correctly.
You're gonna sign off on this, right, Hope? You'll be signing off on this?
Those used to just be in footnotes, now it's on the face of the thing.
Right.
It's a change,
When do we get the?
Will be or has?
No, will be. It's not signed yet, right?
not signed.
Right.
You have to prove it.
And then if you look on the liability side, you have kind of an entry, total non-current liabilities goes from 7.9 million to 361 million. And that's again, the issuance of the bonds shows up as 365 million in non-current liabilities over time. So that's sort of the highlight, very different than what you've seen before. And then there's another table on page 8, statement of revenues, expenses, changes, and depreciation, which has total operating revenues and expenses. Again, you see a pretty big jump reflecting kind of the new leases that were effective at the end of April of 2025. So you saw an increase there. And then interest income roughly doubled. We had $365 million to invest. Over time, you're going to see that interest income dwindle. Obviously, if interest rates drop, but also as that money is spent on the project and provided to the tenants as tenant improvement allowances, you're going to start to see interest income drop. So that's kind of the highlights, I think, on the financial statements this year. Any questions on that? And I should comment, the other thing is our surplus was $8.2 million for the year. A lot of that was driven by 10.9 million in investment income. So you're going to see that number kind of drop as well. And in our projections, typically 90% of that is paid to the city as an additional rent. However, the board can decide to reserve that money for kind of corporate needs. And so we're asking to do that this year, $8.2 million reserve. We'd spoken to the city, OMB and City Hall about doing that just because in the middle of a construction project, there are uncertainties. You have to make sure you take care of the building and the tenants and everything else before you, and contingencies, future costs to release space in the building. There's space that's currently occupied by UNDP as swing space, meaning they move their staff in there, reconstruct, renovate their space, and then move them out. And no rent is paid for that space. So as they move staff out, we're going to have to release that space, hopefully to UN organizations going forward. And typically we have to pay upfront to build it out. It costs millions of dollars to do that, and you can speak to that. And
Yep.
it's not
Not cheap.
an inexpensive proposition to build it out. So that's kind of the reason we had agreed with the city to reserve those amounts at least through the construction period. And that requires a vote of the board, including the ex officio board members. We previewed that with the city hall in advance.
How concerned should we be about so many aspects of the UN moving to Portugal and Germany, as Mr. Klein mentioned, and it's not a good, if all your employees are working in another country, it's a little hard to, it's, what are we doing to reverse that trend and try to happy, I mean, UNICEF and UNFPA are two of the flagship organizations of the UN, and they're going overseas from what I read. And what are we doing to counter that? I mean, we have all this empty space in Midtown that is empty. I guess we've got a lot of real estate greats at the table. You know, what are we going to do with that space there? I guess that's a city decision, or it's private property, really, basically. But what can we do to keep our personnel and our major organizations from going abroad? I mean, if our major organizations go abroad, it's not going to be long before they're going to say, look, we'll pay you to come to whatever country it is. And so I'm just, do we have a think tank looking at that, or anybody looking at it?
Yeah. You know, that's sort of a city policy, you know, it bears further discussion, I think.
It's certainly something.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say, Mayor Mamdani met with the Secretary General this morning to affirm the commitment of the city to the UN and to kind of reiterate the city's desire to not only keep the UN here, but actually deepen the partnership. I think to the extent that the city treats that. There's obviously the contrast with the federal government, and that like some of the problems are the root are, it's not in our control, right? When the powerful states are not making their contributions, it creates a financial crisis that is inevitable. But we spent the entire conversation affirming expressing intent to help, to engage, to make the sort of the presence of the UN central to how the mayor is thinking about the prosperity of the city also. So
that's encouraging. That's great.
yes, and the Secretary General was extremely excited and receptive. So yeah, that's great. But
I think also from a US city's perspective, there's a lot of movements that are starting up to really encourage the UN to be in the US and to ensure that we're also sharing that with our federal government. So I think that we will see more voices coming out in support of the UN, which will then lead to them being here a little bit more. But I also see, in addition to Congresswoman's question here, we have about a 29% vacancy in one UN.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, that's one reason we need these reserves. You know, we're gonna have to reach out to UN organizations. You know, the early read is that they want to be in this building. It's gonna be fully renovated. It's right across from the headquarters. You know, we're very excited. UNDP chose this as their headquarters. It's an ideal location for them. It's going to be built as they want it to be built for their future needs. And, you know, we've had strong interest, but there are UN
Years from now.
financial challenges, obviously. Maybe they don't want really long leases. Sometimes there's uncertainty in funding. So in the future, we're going to have to look at that, you know, very seriously. We'll probably hire a commercial real estate firm to help us, I think.
Yeah.
The tenants.
Rob, Rob Schubert, when do you see the swing space being ready to be released?
2029, 2030.
Yeah.
We'll be carrying it in various.
We're gonna carry it for a while.
Repair and disrepair.
I don't have clear visibility of when they're moving those user groups off of those floors. Because they're gonna be, you know, We're preparing the floors for their tenant fit out. They'll build their tenant fit out, move people around. They're coming from different buildings. So we don't have visibility as to when they're gonna vacate what we call the space. But, you know, we'll keep it.
UNICEF takes possession one of their space
July 2nd.
this year.
This year.
They'll take it, so we're gonna be UN 1 and 2. So
Yeah.
they'll take it, they'll.
And you would ask about private sector and all that. Our rents are extremely attractive here. Beat any outside developer. Let's typify it that way.
So why are they moving?
I think
Just
for
that
better-
cheaper to go to Germany? I mean.
Yeah,
I think those states were offering incentives, or those countries were offering incentives for those agencies, those UN agencies to move into those.
Yeah, they want the residual effect, the
Yeah.
prestige and the residual effect.
Yeah.
Redoing the way, instead of having private offices, it was more shared spaces, and they came up with their own mind of ways to economizing the cost of rents and the cost of running the building. So they found a way to have the same number of people and less space by having less assigned spaces. Because people do come and go, so.
UN's projecting 2,000 occupants in 2 UN.
Okay.
So it's not, it's pretty substantial.
And UNDP taking the space and putting a signature lobby, they're the better credit. To be honest, to have here is the UNDP, more stable, bigger program, $7 billion budget. I think we'll be full. I mean, our own little selfishness will be full. The greater UN staying in New York City, we debate this all the time. I think they're staying, the kids like to be here, they get special time, they get to go to Broadway. If you're gonna be here and you're gonna be a country that has to be in the, you'd rather be in New York.
Don't forget.
And even Geneva, I mean, roll off the sidewalks in Geneva at 5 o'clock, and here you have the city that never sleeps.
And Joe, don't forget Katz's Deli.
Yeah, Katz's Deli.
Oh, yeah.
Will always be the international city, the beacon for everybody.
And you have to remember, there's 193 permanent missions in New York. There's a whole ecosystem on the east side. UN contributes probably over $5 billion a year to the economy. I know your office.
And it's more than the 2 weeks in September. It's.
It's all year long. I mean, these are, housing.
Per week.
Shows.
Hard to keep them here.
There's 20,000 UN related jobs in New York. There's 2,000 construction jobs on our project alone.
Yeah.
It's a driver of economic growth in the city.
And they all have
Really important.
importance, and they stay in the city, and they have staff and however they run their lives. Good engine, good economic engine.
Yeah. And, the UN and the UNDP are consolidating into these buildings from other locations. So that drives efficiencies for them and for the organization overall.
And the price, believe it or not, we were negotiating hard in the middle of COVID,
Yeah.
and 51 or 50.
Good rent.
They have a great rent. Everything else is approaching triple digits, and we're only halfway there.
Yeah.
So they're not going anywhere. They're fine.
If people want to be close to the UN, so if those spots become available, if anyone that does business at the UN or any of these missions, they need more space, it's logical to want to be here.
Yeah.
Do we have prohibitions on who we rent?
No, we don't actually. We don't. But, you want to be consistent with your mission. There's nothing in our statute that says you only must be UN.
I just got it.
Yeah.
No,
It's a good question, but,
it's.
I think that you do have the hotel, so that's, also the UN tenants prefer to have UN organizations in their building, not other tenants, but it's not a restriction, per se.
Technically, you could have like an NGO potentially.
Yeah,
or,
UN
like, someone
related
in the-
NGOs,
in the
okay.
space. Yeah.
There's no restriction to bonds or taxable, so you don't have a kind of an issue with, taxable, tax exempt issues. But it's always been, sorry?
UNRWA might be a question right now.
But, historically, it's always been the UN and missions in the building.
Okay.
Continue to
Any
work on
other-
this subject. I think.
Any other questions before we make a motion to approve the audit of the financial statement? No?
So moved.
Oh, yeah. Together? Yeah. Okay. So this is, I'll make a motion to approve both the financial statements and the board resolution for the reserves.
Second.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so now.
Okay.
we'll move-
Yeah, I mean, I know we're in the interest of time, we'll kind of move it forward. We do have in tab 9, there's a memo on the status of the renovation project. which I'm not going to go through because Rob Schubert will kind of do a brief presentation on where we are on the project.
Okay. Who's driving? Caitlin, you driving? A little bit, go to full screen. A little hard to believe, but I've been on this job for almost 3 years. I have to say that, we're supported by very, very good people. I've come out of the commercial real estate world, and this is a very different project. So I'm supported by Christian Wakefield's Project Development Services, Wayne Mann, Elisa Zepatelli, and Caitlin Nevins. They're my eyes and ears every day. And, there's a huge amount of detail in this job. I have to say that after building 2 buildings in Times Square and building this building is much more complex in terms of logistics and execution, basically doing open heart surgery on buildings that are being fully occupied. We just got the air conditioning back to this room a week ago. So there's things that, we're going through. The design team is Spacesmith. Schiller Project is also assisting on the design of the 2 lobbies, the main lobbies of the building. Cosentini Associates is our mechanical contractor. They were the original engineers on the building from long ago, and then GMS is our structural engineer. Turner Construction was hired by competitive bidding before I got here. You made the right choice, Rob. In terms of what we have, in terms of the project team, I've done literally millions of square feet of construction with Turner, and we have their attention. We've got the proper staff, and we'll get into it a little bit more. And Cushman Wakefield's our property manager, and we're, so the Wayne's team and Steve LeCharge's team, they work very closely together because we have operating building, and we're ripping everything apart at the same time. So the project really got going in 2023, and Turner was on for pre-construction services prior to that. And the leases, Cyril Touchard from Fried Frank has taught me more about leasing and just slogging through it. These are the very, very complicated leases. There are like 20 lease exhibits of things that control what we do. The intention, there's 15-year leases with renewals on 1 and 2 UN. One of the real goals initially from both tenants is, sustainability and energy conservation. We are complying with New York's Build Smart 2025. We're hitting 40% on 2 UN, on 45 on 1 UN. That has to do with the age of the buildings, and like 1 UN is like very, very old equipment, very, very inefficient. We're going to see, 60% reduction in energy consumption on chillers alone. So the way that we assume this, and all the pre-construction that Turner did, and I'll get into this in a little bit more detail, that there's basically 10 big components of work that we split up by type, by finances, by impacts on the building, and how we sequence through those. And then most importantly, George was very clear that the tenants will build out their space. So we are responsible for delivering buildable space to them. Some people call it white box, and they're building out their space. In fact, 2 UN is going to occupy their first 4 floors next month. The project is on schedule and on budget, which is a big feat here. Next one. So this gets into the dollar amounts of how we're breaking down the various component costs with the schedules. So that the central, I'm going to go, and I'll go into a little bit more detail, the central plant reconstruction, the facade restorations, and basically what we call make ready, the demo and abatement work, and fire alarm upgrades that are basically, we found these things in 50-year-old buildings. These are the gifts that keep on giving. You never know what else you're going to find, and we found it. We found most of it, but we were still. The next slide. So, as I said, the first, major renovations, 40 years. The buildings were they were well maintained, but they were just, they're run and they were tired and they're old and need to be fixed. The original Kevin Roche, John Dinkley design, these buildings were multi-use buildings. So not only the hotel, but the offices, all of those systems and this is a very transparent building, in 1975, you could have walked through these buildings without seeing security guards. Now we've had to separate things. In the Giuliani administration, they sold off a component of the hotel in 1UN, which comes as its own accounting issues in terms of compliance and building code issues, because they have to comply with New York City code, but we're complying with state code. So we're dancing that dance, and I'll beg forgiveness on something. And that goes into the condo agreement. Actually, basically, we negotiated with Turner for about a year for the guaranteed maximum price, and we went through literally every component and identified every issue that will come. We can't go out and send a set of drawings and say build this. That doesn't work that way. So they're the construction manager. We are managing on a component by component basis every week. The condo agreement, I said, it requires that there's some of the parts of the 1UN construction are taxable. So we end up having multiple contracts from Turner. There's basically 3 contracts for all the work for all the trade contractors. We did early on, as we mentioned before, we went out and bought a lot of the major equipment early on so that we could get it here. We dodged the tariff bullet. But again, unforeseen conditions occur every day. We ripped apart the roof to get the chillers in. We found deteriorated roofing. It's a litany of things. So, and the phasing is really something that we really are doing a dance around, but I think we've got the rhythm now. One of the issues with the tenants is they are able to do non-union contracting. So there are labor harmony clauses in both leases with us. We've also separated out the points of entry for individual trade contract for the UN's contractors, UNDP's contractors, and Turner. So that we're not mixing, because Turner's a full union. This is a full union job. The lifeblood of this job is elevator access. As you came in, you saw if you ran into the congestion downstairs, it's going to get worse as they start moving people into the building. But we basically had to take half the passenger elevators for construction use and half the patients for pedestrian or for tenant use.
Much worse, sorry.
You're going to be queuing in the lobby itself.
Queuing in the lobby.
We predicted this. The UN understands it. It's just what we got to do.
The alternate's the fire stairs, but I don't think you want to.
Yeah, you don't want to schlep up fire stairs. And in terms of the other things that we look at, there are scope changes that we encounter of things that we never anticipated. We have the contingencies to do that. One of the things that as we went through the original lobby designs, we hadn't included the canopies and refurbishment of those, but they need to be refurbished. So that's, put into the overall project. And I have to commend Cyril and his team in terms of us getting through all the leases and all the complex, because there are a lot of very technical things that we were all collectively, part of and developing. But, Cyril and his team really did a great job in terms of moving us through this very difficult project with 2 steps of attorneys. Next. So that, basically the leasing design, we went through many iterations of what has to happen. Budgeting, construction, trade bidding. We had a lot before we awarded contracts. And we were starting to do early awards to define the dollars, see where we are. And, the negotiations on the GMP, the GMP was signed the day we closed the financing. So it was right up to the leases were done before that. As I said, the central plant, we're replacing all the chillers, all the cooling towers in 1 UN, the chillers and 2 UN. It's extremely complicated. Basically, we had to rip out everything on the 1 UN, take out all the gigantic chillers. We're putting in smaller ones, but it came through a hole in the roof and they're shuffled around. It's very complicated. The office make ready work is the bigger component. It's a big component. Basically, we go in, we demo, and in most cases, bait the floors. It's not fireproofing it. It's like mastic in the floor tile. So, but we have to go through the DEP requirements on it. And, that's been we basically have a phased turnover for those, because the tenants are in space, they're moving out, they're moving back in, and it's just basically they're trying to line up when they end up landing people either temporarily or permanently in the space. Facade restoration, basically, it hasn't been touched in 25 years, so we're ripping out all of the existing caulking and resealing the buildings, replacing broken glass. The fire alarm system, totally obsolete, so we have upgrading the entire fire alarm system. And as I said, we're doing 2 new lobbies for 1 and 2 UN, and the UN VP has the ability to put in what they call a signature lobby, which is just south of the main lobby, in the old Chase space for their marketing and branding. We're just starting those discussions now. Next. This gives you, that we picked chillers and cooling towers last week. It was uneventful finally, but the amount of planning that goes into this is just, it was down to the, basically Turner had a method of procedure of 50 pages just to get the stuff in the bill. We were storing the other deadline is we've got to get air conditioning back now. Now, so the 2 UN chillers are going in on Saturday, and we have the ability to bump those. We've kept, there's some legacy chillers in that we use around to help us, but in the end, we'll basically have the new cooling system up and running by year's end. And these buildings were literally manually controlled. So we're now putting in a building management system. So, the engineers don't have to go up and if somebody has a hot call and look at what that 1970s manual damper is, we know where the temperatures are. So, we'll create comfort conditions for them. That's the facade, just people are going to be hanging off this building for 1.5 years. It's just nature of the beast. Next. And then the make ready component, again, we demolished these floors. And literally they had, they moved in 1970s and that's what was there. So we're demolishing all of this stuff. And then the way that our work is identified technically is this F1 exhibits, which is basically getting ready for the tenants to start building out their space. F2 is when we finish the rest of all the mechanical guts in each of the floors, actually, upgrading floor by floor units. And it's basically getting all of the old equipment out and putting new modern equipment in. And then after, once F2 work is done, the tenant's going to occupy those floors. But this is going to go out for years. Right now, we're projecting the UN to be out 29, 30 for the last couple of floors. The majority, I think, would get done in 28, you think? Yeah, 28 plus or minus. And F3 defines all of the rest of the work that we have to do. We had a 5-year window to get that work done. Beat that. Next.
Congratulations.
And I took this last week. The tenants have hired Gardner and Theobald as their project managers. They have separate teams for each tenant. The UN's got 2/3 of the space. And have you hired your contractor yet, or you're pretty close? Pretty close. UNDP is pretty close to having their general contractor on board. UN is a little bit behind them, but they had a contractor able to build out the first 4 floors. They're going to do another half floor shortly, but they're going to go out further than UNDP will go.
This is a UN floor.
That's a UN floor. Yes, that is downstairs. It's downstairs on 15.
I walked in to look.
But they will have people on site in middle of April. Okay. We're going to do lobby renovations. These are very, very, very conceptual sketches. It will not look like this when we're done. It'll have, it's the intent. And so it'll be much, much nicer than this in terms of when we get done.
Go with the green. Let's match. Match the grain, not like the UN podium. Every time they're speaking from it, they need to match the grain.
There's some resistance on green. I'll give you that. And upper left is basically the 2 UN lobby is much
Things
smaller.
brought in the blue hat.
The UN, we're gonna basically push out the entrance doors and, renovate the lobbies in terms of what we're seeing in terms of lighting, finishes. We're gonna, if you notice, the UN security guard stands as this little podium. We're gonna give that person its own place to stay. The UN is looking at this because there are gonna be 2,000 people in the building. It's gonna be a hardened site. It's gonna be hardened like the Secretariat. So getting in and out of this building is gonna be, could be much more scrutinized. And then on the right-hand side, the top of the lobby the top lobby is the main lobby. We're gonna square out the spaces. The lobby desks are actually gonna function. I think they were put together by carpenters in 1980. And then the southern space, the space at the bottom of the green is that the signature lobby area that we're just starting those discussions with the UNDP as to what that's gonna look like. A lot of information to take in. I'm happy to answer any questions people have, either before or after. But
Couple, you meant the street vaults. What is that exactly? Are those
What?
the street vaults?
there's a sidewalk vault. You mean the bollards?
Yeah, are those the pillars, those metal pillars? What is
Those
the
are
street
secure.
vault?
So there's two things we're going on.
Okay,
The vault on the 45th Street side is leaking. So basically the sidewalk, it's dripping down into the start and getting onto things. So we're gonna have to rip out part of the 45th Street sidewalk and some of the surrounding foundation walls and put those back in place.
okay.
That's what the vault component is in terms of the work.
Foundation extends to the curb line, so there's
Okay.
an area underneath. Rain.
And it's leaking pretty good.
It's really a basement that has a hatch to get to it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I just want to comment on the team as well, Rob and Cushman Wakefield Project Management. I go to most of the meetings. It's an incredibly complex project we're doing here with occupied buildings and hotel tenants, enormous amount of coordination. We meet with the UNDP team every other week, and they have their own talented team that coordinates with us. And
Same with the UN.
Turner.
We meet with the
UN
weekly.
team. So, this room is constant meetings.
Yeah, the Turner's got
It's done.
14 people on site,
Turner,
just
they're
in
all-
terms of billing, coordination, shop drawings. There's just a lot of people assigned to all these different components and chasing them individually. So we've got a very good, solid team. As I've said, I've done a lot of work with Turner before, and we have the main office's attention on this job.
And the property management team, Cushman Wakefield.
I don't-
In addition to their day job
Yeah,
of
no.
running the buildings, they are at all these meetings.
Yeah.
And the building engineers
Right.
have to know what's going on.
Right. So they're gonna be happier when we're done. But in the meantime, we're breaking.
Yeah.
I can't underestimate the one thing is keeping elevators in this building going. But we have full-time mechanics on for 2 shifts. At the end of this job, which is not included in the project, we're gonna have to modernize the elevators. Because we're keeping them going right now with, Band-Aid and chewing gum. But then, again, that's why we have the people on board.
Thank you. It's tremendous. Wow.
Here is with all this on time and under budget or at budget. And that's the
Amazing.
key, always.
It's great.
Rob is to be congratulated for that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
If anyone ever wants a tour of C space.
Yeah, we're happy to take.
Put on a hard neck if you're-
It's the most restricted house.
Thank you. Well, if there isn't any other business, any other business? To raise? Comments? No? Right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.
you.
What a pleasure. Thank you.